Right now on Capitol Hill, the CEO of TikTok is testifying before a House committee. Today's hearing about online safety comes as the video sharing app faces intense scrutiny, with some lawmakers proposing a complete ban. CBS News chief foreign affairs correspondent and moderator of Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan, is here in Studio 57 with us to discuss. Welcome, Margaret.
Good morning. Good to be here with you guys.
So it's great to have you in studio with us. Let me ask you about this. There's a new CBS News poll that shows that most Americans, Democrats and Republicans, have very similar views and stances on rules on social media. What are the concerns? And it's kind of interesting as we watch this hearing, it seems to be bipartisan. The attacks on the CEO of ByteDance.
Well, that CBS News poll that we're looking at there, one thing that stood out is it was like 8 in 10 Americans all basically sort of assume the worst. They assume that their data is being somehow exploited by social media companies, and they do have concerns about a national security risk. That was really kind of across the board. What we're seeing happening in Washington right now is this very sort of extreme version of the issue at hand, which is a foreign-owned company with an extremely popular U.S. subsidiary, and that question of whether, in this case, that foreign-owned entity can not only exploit the data it is collecting on Americans, but change the content that you were receiving by manipulating algorithms in a way that's essentially state-sponsored propaganda versus, you know, these innocuous videos.
Right.
Also, you heard some of those Congresspeople bring up the idea that it's harmful content, things teaching teenagers how to hurt themselves versus the content that is directed and streamed in China. And this is such an interesting example because it mixes together so many of the hot button issues in Washington right now, which is this now bipartisan agreement from the very top of the national security structure that there is no difference between the Chinese company and the Chinese state, and that the Chinese state has said it has the right to ask that company and force them to hand over information. So it is the possibility of how this information could be used and manipulated in the future that has drawn this bipartisan concern. But how to handle it gets a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, because I feel like, TikTok is definitely the hot thing right now. But before TikTok, it was Huawei, and whether or not Huawei was, the hardware and expanding Wi-Fi into rural areas.
Right.
I mean, I feel like this has been a concern before, and they haven't. The federal government hasn't figured out how to tackle it.
No, you're exactly right. And what's happening now inside the Biden administration is this ramping up of those entities. You've had this organization, CFIUS, which has been a division of the Treasury that looked into foreign ownership of or purchases of U.S. entities and whether that harmed national security. Now it is exploding in size because we're talking about technology. We're looking at all sorts of different spaces that they haven't had jurisdiction over, essentially, in the past or reason to question. And so there's more scrutiny happening, but there are questions of how do you handle this going forward? And so that's where the debate has been locked up for years. You're right. It went back to the Trump administration. And really, honestly, the Biden administrations end up in the same place the Trump administration did, which was this app is a problem, but it's not the end-all, be-all. All sensitive technology needs to be looked at. And we've talked to Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat, about this. He's chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He's going to be my guest on Sunday to talk more about it. And it's really, there's the agreement to do something, but how do you do it? Do you force a sale? Do you ban the app? How do you do that when it's already on 150 million phones? Politicians don't really want to alienate young voters anyway.
Right.
So there's also that element to it. But what about all the other technologies, biomedical technology, artificial intelligence? This goes on and on and on.
Completely.
Yeah.
We just relate to this because we know what it is.
Right.
It's on your phone.
And clearly, a foreign entity, that's certainly a concern. But as Anne-Marie, you pointed out this morning, I mean, like half the things on our phones are tracking the very same data.
I thought to myself, like, what would stop an American company that collects all this data from selling it to China? I mean, basically, we don't have any rules for this stuff.
You heard one of the Congresspeople bring up a bill that would put more restrictions on data collection and who you sell it to, or they sell it to.
Right.
But what is so unique about this case is that idea of foreign espionage.
Right.
And one thing really working against this CEO, who is very much in the targets right now, is the fact that the Department of Justice is investigating surveillance of journalists that happened through TikTok and ByteDance, where they narrowed in on the location of the journalist and exploited some of her data. And 2 of the employees who did it were based in China. So now they have shown it can be done. Whether or not it regularly is another matter. But that is really working against the case the CEO is making today.
Let's talk a little bit about President Xi Jinping, Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Moscow this week with Vladimir Putin. He met with Vladimir Putin. We had a robust discussion yesterday around this subject as well with a foreign policy expert. And how do you see this meeting? Because one of the things that he pointed out to us, we thought it was very interesting, is the message that Putin and Xi are sending to the rest of the world, the message that Xi is sending to people in China, and the message that Vladimir Putin wants his people to get from this. So there's a lot of different sort of signaling by showing the two world leaders kicking back a shot and toasting themselves.
Right. And then the counter programming the West did by having Japan's leader fly to Kyiv to show, that Asian leaders can make this choice. They don't have to necessarily follow the lead of China. They can follow that of Japan. Really interesting choreography.
Yes, it really was.
Yeah. I mean, on the Xi Jinping visit, look, I think the bigger thing that we are now recognizing in Washington and around the world is that we are in this great power competition with China right now. And the Biden administration is figuring out its policies and working around this idea of avoiding confrontation. And it is getting harder and harder when Xi Jinping, while claiming neutrality, flies and stands next to Vladimir Putin, who is this, avowed enemy of the West, having gone through with this invasion of Ukraine, an active war criminal under, a arrest warrant because of abducting children. But keep in mind, as we were talking about the other day, China's president is accused of carrying out an act of genocide. So this whole argument over world-based, rules-based international order and values is being challenged. And one of the quotes that I think we'll hear again is what Xi Jinping said and caught on camera to Vladimir Putin on the way out, is things are happening now that haven't happened in 100 years, and we're the ones doing it. So it's this reshaping of the international order that everyone's sort of holding their breath to see.
And I was going to say, isn't it also getting harder because while there are competing interests with China, there are also mutually beneficial interests in China. While the U.S. is continuing to sort of make inroads in Africa, when the Secretary of State goes to Niger and says, "Hey, what about these human rights things? We have this check," but that makes things complicated and a lot harder for the U.S.
Yes, that's the trade-off. That's the challenge. And you have seen the Biden administration try to do more courtship of African countries. You will see that more and more. And not an as overt an argument. You won't necessarily see them go and say, we're here to stand up to China, but that is 100% what's happening. But it's also reminding those leaders that when they make that deal with China, sometimes the loan deals are exploitative. Sometimes the investment in the region, I mean, you know this very well, doesn't actually pay off for your people. So if you're a leader who feels that, future planning is an issue, maybe that weighs on you a little bit. But this idea of the world order is so much more challenging than during the Cold War because of what you laid out. And someone said to me, imagine if the Soviet Union had an unending supply of fuel, for example, and things like that. If they had exploited the Middle East the way that China has exploited the African supply lines in really owning rare earth materials, the things to put in your electric car vehicle battery, in the batteries in your phones. China owns that supply chain, and the United States is trying to play catch up. Sometimes our values prevent us from doing deals with these leaders because they're exploiting human rights. That's a hard one. It's a hard one.
The narrative seems to be increasingly from the media, but also from politicians, is that China is our enemy, and because we are economically tied to China in a way that we were not with the Soviet Union. Certainly, they're an adversary, but in speaking to people in China, in Taiwan, they don't talk about Americans as much as we talk about them. And everything you see in the news now is China this and China is almost framing it for the American people as the Chinese people are our enemy, even though they always add Chinese Communist Party. Is it your sense that we should consider them an enemy or just an adversary?
I think the language that you just referenced there has to be precise. You've seen pains go into changing the language people use so that you're either referring to Beijing, but not China as a whole. You're referring to the Chinese Communist Party, but not the Chinese people. And sometimes that nuance is lost on people. But that's kind of a thing I think all of us have to be aware of in engaging. look, I think all of us journalists would love more visas to go report on the ground in China and talk to the Chinese people. And that is not very much allowed right now in this moment in time. So I think all of us would love to hear more from the Chinese people themselves about what they're thinking if they're allowed to speak.
Margaret, it's always great.
It's always so good. We want to do a whole hour with you.
It's a rare appearance, so we appreciate every second of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.